Welcome to Through Endurance We Conquer. I'm your host, Ashley Mello, and in today's episode, we're talking about common running mistakes and how to avoid them. Before we dive into the episode, if you're just starting your running journey, be sure to check out my free Couch to 5K running guide at mellorunning.com. That's MELO running.com. It's a simple, beginner-friendly plan that'll help you build up to 3.1 miles in just 6 weeks. If you have any questions or want to learn more about one-on-one coaching, feel free to reach out to me at ashley@mellorunning.com or DM me on Instagram at Through Endurance We Conquer. Most runners don't realize they're making these mistakes until they hit a plateau, get injured, or feel burnt out. But what if you can fix them now and improve faster? While learning from your mistakes is part of the process, avoiding them can make a big difference in your progress and help prevent injury. So today I'm going to go over some common beginner mistakes in running and provide some tips for avoiding them. I also included some mistakes that may seem counterintuitive, and those ones will apply to not just beginner runners, but experienced runners too. So the first common mistake is starting too fast. And that's not just running too fast. That could also be increasing your mileage too much too soon. This becomes a problem because it can quickly lead to burnout. It can discourage you because you're not seeing the progress you're expecting to make, or it can lead to injury. When you start out, you'll want to spend time building that base fitness. Then you can gradually progress from there. That's why if you haven't run in a long time or ever, it's good to start with those walk-run intervals. I know I've mentioned those several times over the first few episodes, but it really helps when you're getting started and trying to slowly get into running. And I'd recommend spending at least 4 to 6 weeks building your base fitness. From there, you can slowly build up your endurance and add in some speed work. Like I mentioned before, you can use a running plan like my Couch to 5K guide, or you can reach out to me for one-on-one coaching if you need some guidance in where to start and how to slowly build up from there. Another common mistake that runners make, myself included, is not warming up or cooling down properly. This is one that we tend to make when we're feeling time crunched and we have a certain mileage we need to hit for the day, and we would rather spend our limited time on the running workout, so we just blow off the warm up and cool down completely. But this is a problem because it greatly increases your risk of injury and can lead to muscle stiffness. That's why it's important to do some dynamic warm-ups like leg swings, walking lunges, high knees before you run, and do some static stretches after you run. This is a good thing to incorporate while you're building your base fitness because you're not trying to add something new on top of your training program. You're just adding this in while you're building up your running base, and this makes it a lot easier for it to become part of your routine. And this ties into the next mistake, which is stretching before a run instead of after. Static stretching before a run can actually reduce your performance and increase the risk of injury. That's why I'm emphasizing the dynamic warm-ups like leg swings, high knees, walking lunges before your run, and then you do the static stretching after. Another common mistake for beginner runners is wearing the wrong shoes. When you're starting out, you may just grab any regular pair of shoes that you happen to have on hand. And that might be fine for your first couple of runs or walks while you're just getting started. But over time, not wearing the proper running shoes or wearing shoes that aren't fitted correctly can lead to blisters, joint pain, and long-term injuries. The best way to avoid this is to go to a specialty running store for a fitting and choose the shoes that match your foot type and running style. I know it can be very expensive to go to those stores for the fitting and buying the shoes directly from them, but it is important to have someone to help you pick out the right shoe for you. In addition to wearing the right shoes, it's also a good idea to consider replacing your shoes after every 300 to 500 miles. Another thing you can do, especially if you're running more than 4 or 5 times a week, is to have 2 pairs of running shoes. That way, you can alternate them so you're not wearing them out as fast. And for more experienced runners, having 2 different shoes is helpful so that you can have one specifically for long runs and one that is more suitable for shorter runs or speed work days. The next mistake is not listening to your body. Pushing through pain or ignoring discomfort can lead to serious injuries that set you back or take you out of running completely for months. As you go along your running journey, you're going to want to learn the difference between discomfort, which can be normal during a workout, and pain, which could be a sign of injury. This is something that's going to take some time to learn as you go along. But as you get to know yourself better and get more experienced with running, you'll be able to tell the difference between what is discomfort and what is pain. For example, if your legs are sore or you feel a dull ache, that could just be discomfort. But if you're feeling more of a sharp pain, especially in the joint area, that could be a signal of an injury. When you're getting those signals of a potential injury, it's important to listen to your body and stop your workout when you feel that pain. Or you could even take a walking break to see if that helps ease it. But if the pain isn't easing up, stop your workout, plan some rest, ice it if you need to. But don't feel guilty about taking walking breaks or having to take an extra rest day. It's better to take that extra rest when you first feel that pain instead of pushing through, because pushing through will make the injury worse. The next mistake runners make is not hydrating properly. Dehydration can negatively affect your performance and your recovery. So while you're running, you'll want to make hydration a priority. If you're doing a shorter run, like 30 to 45 minutes tops, you can probably get away without having water with you. But if you're going to be out there for longer, especially an hour or more, it's good to have a water pack or a water bottle with you while you run, especially if it's hot outside. If you're running first thing in the morning, you don't want to run when you're already in a dehydrated state from sleeping. So make sure to have a glass of water before you head out and take some water with you too. Make sure you're staying hydrated throughout the day too to prevent dehydration. The next mistake, and this is one that both beginners and experienced runners make, is overtraining. Running too often or not allowing enough rest between your workouts can lead to burnout, fatigue, and injury. That's why it's important to follow a training plan that incorporates rest days and some cross-training days like strength training or cycling to help balance out your running workouts with recovery. This also ties into listening to your body so you can be aware of any fatigue you feel and schedule an extra recovery day if needed. This next mistake, which is related to overtraining, is thinking that running more is always better. A lot of people believe that running more miles equals better results, but that's not always true. Just as we talked about before, running too much too soon causes injuries and plateaus. So instead of thinking that more mileage leads to better results, focus on the quality of your workouts instead of the quantity of the miles that you're running. In addition to quality running workouts, you'll also want to incorporate strength training, mobility work, stretching, and strategic rest days as well. Another point I want to add is some running plans are more mileage based, but once you start training for marathons and especially ultra marathons, some of them may be more time based. So that means when you're on your long run days, instead of planning to run 20, 24 miles, you may want to run up to 3 to 3.5 hours. In a lot of the coaching classes I've taken and the books that I've read, when you're training for a marathon, they say to cap your long runs at 3.5 hours. Research has shown that 3.5 hours is the upper limit of the time you want to spend on your feet for your longest run. Research shows that a long run of 3.5 hours is the upper limit for your longest long run in your training plan for a marathon. So this is for marathons specifically. They've shown that running more than 3.5 hours isn't actually beneficial for your training. So if you're a slower runner or you're getting too hung up on the mileage, you can adjust your running plan from mileage-based to time-based. That way you're still getting the time on your feet needed for endurance, but you're not so much focused on the mileage. This is something you're going to want to keep in mind if you're training for a trail race or doing a lot of trail runs. Depending on the trails that you're running, you may encounter a lot of hills. Maybe you're training in the summer months when it's a lot hotter, and those hills and heat are going to slow you down a lot. And if you're focused on mileage, you'll be spending more time on your feet than you need to, which will impact your performance and your recovery. So instead of chasing after a specific mileage, focus on the quality of your workout and maybe shift to a plan that is focused on time on your feet and has a time-based goal for your long runs. The next mistake that both beginners and experienced runners make is running too hard on your easy days and sometimes too easy on your hard days. A lot of runners feel that each run that you complete should feel like a hard workout, but running too fast on your easy days and recovery days leads to burnout and slows your progress. So to fix this, you'll want to keep your easy runs truly easy. A good way to do that is focus on a conversational pace. So that means you're able to talk, maybe you're breathing a little heavier, but you can still hold some conversation if you needed to. Keeping your easy days easy will help you conserve your energy for your harder workouts. So keep that in mind because you want to have your hard days hard so that you're making the progress that you need to for your speed and endurance. And make sure that you're alternating your hard and easy days so you're getting the proper amount of rest. This next mistake is one that I know a lot of people make, and it can be hard to correct. That mistake is ignoring your cadence and stride mechanics. A lot of runners don't think about their stride or their cadence, but overstriding, taking those big steps, can increase your risk of injury. I know a lot of runners don't like to think about stride and cadence while they're running. They just want to get in the zone and run in a way that feels natural. But ignoring your stride and running mechanics can increase your risk of injury. A lot of people think that if you're heel striking, that's automatically bad. But as long as your foot strike is under your body and under your center of mass, it's not necessarily wrong. That said, overstriding can lead to that heel strike. And it's that overstriding and putting your foot in front of your body that leads to injury. To correct that issue, first focus on keeping your foot strike under your body, under the center of mass. Next, you'll want to aim for a mid-foot strike instead of a heel strike. This is something that's going to take time to work on. It helps if you're able to film yourself running or have a friend film you so you can get an idea of where your strike is. Sometimes you can even see that in your race photos if you have any. I know I have a lot of unflattering heel strike photos out there. In addition to your running stride, you'll also want to aim for a cadence of about 170 to 180 steps per minute. And this may vary depending on your height and the type of run you're doing. Your tempo runs will likely have a higher cadence than your slower runs, and that's normal. Most running watches will keep track of your cadence for you. If it feels overwhelming to track your cadence, then just focus on keeping your foot strike under your body for now. If your foot is striking in front of your body, that's like pumping on the brakes. So it's not just slowing you down, it's also putting a lot of pressure on your joints, and that's what's going to lead to injury. This is the most important thing to work on for proper running mechanics. So just focus on that one for now if the cadence is too overwhelming. Beginners might think they should always feel excited to run, but experienced runners know consistency comes from discipline, not just motivation. So to fix this, make running part of your routine. Schedule it in during your day like you would any other appointment or non-negotiable task. Stick to your plan no matter how you feel. This is a good thing to practice to hone your discipline skills. Because while it feels good to run when you're feeling motivated and you're excited about your upcoming race, you're not always going to feel that way every day. Especially when you start running again after your race and you don't have another one planned. You might not feel that same motivation and spark to run, but you also don't want to fall out of your running routine. When you get off track, it's going to make it a lot harder to get back in the habit of running. So it's a good idea to practice that discipline and make running part of your regular fitness routine. And our final mistake that we're going to go over is thinking that you need to carb load for every run. While it's a good idea to eat before a run, especially before hard workouts like speed work or long runs, It doesn't necessarily need to be a carb-heavy meal or snack. Carb loading is more for long endurance runs and races and not your regular training runs. Sometimes runners can be so focused on performing their best for each and every run, and that can lead to overeating, which can cause stomach issues along the way and slow you down. So it's important to plan your nutrition according to your workouts. Fuel yourself based on the length and intensity of your run and not just out of habit. I remember when I ran my very first 5K race. I had never run a race before. And normally when I run short runs like a 5K, 3 miles, I run it fasted. At that time, I wasn't a big breakfast person and my body was used to running those short runs in a fasted state, and it wasn't a big deal. I ran that race with my friend Calvin, so we stopped at Safeway before the race and we loaded up on Cliff Bars and coconut water, and that was not something that my body was used to. I felt so full and sick and sluggish during the race, and it slowed me down a lot. And actually, now that I'm saying this out loud, this might have been a strategy on Calvin's part to slow me down. So I'm going to call him after this and confront him about it. So to recap, making mistakes along your running journey is normal, but learning from your mistakes and avoiding them can help you progress faster and avoid injury. Focus on starting slow, having a plan in place, doing dynamic warm-ups before the run, stretching after the run, investing in the proper shoes, learn to listen to your body, stay hydrated throughout the day, have a balanced nutrition plan, and focus on fueling specifically for the workout you have for the day. It's also a good idea to work on your stride and mechanics. This is a hard thing to work on, but at the very least, focus on working on a foot strike that goes under your body. And last but not least, rest. Make sure you have rest days when needed, and make sure you give yourself enough time to rest and truly recover before your next workout. Again, it's normal to make these mistakes. We don't always get it right. That's how we learn, and that's how we improve. With the right mindset and planning, you can avoid these pitfalls, avoid injury, and you can enjoy your running journey. So for this week's challenge, I want you to evaluate your running routine and pick one mistake you're making and work on correcting it this week. So whether that's incorporating a proper warm-up, stretching after, focusing on your nutrition and hydration, working on your stride, or scheduling a proper rest day, just pick one to work on this week. And if you want to share any running mistakes you've made or tips that you've learned along the way, you can message me or tag me on Instagram at Through Endurance We Conquer. And remember, if you want personalized support, reach out to me for one-on-one coaching. My contact information is included in the show notes. Next week, we'll talk about how to improve your running without running more miles. So don't forget to subscribe and share the podcast with a friend. I'd also appreciate it if you can take the time to leave a 5-star review. Anything you can do to help me reach and help more people is greatly appreciated. Thank you for listening. Keep showing up, trust the process, and remember, it's through endurance that we conquer.